If you were not paying close attention to the subtle, calculating shift in Jacinda's body language right before Willow grabbed her car keys, you completely missed the real story. If you ask me, the way Jacinda's eyes darted toward the exit was not just nervous energy, it was the look of an apex predator watching a steel trap snap shut on its prey. When we analyze the events predicted for August 11th, I view this entire narrative as a highly dangerous, suffocating stalemate for every single character involved. We are witnessing a psychological chessboard where one wrong move, or one misplaced ounce of trust, could lead to unforeseen fallout that will echo for generations. Let us begin by unpacking the terrifying situation surrounding Willow. It looks like she is happily preparing to drive the children to the arcade, completely unaware that the iced coffee she just consumed has been heavily laced with a potent drug by Jacinda. If you ask me, this is not just about causing a simple traffic accident or a momentary lapse in judgment. There is a deeply sinister psychological motive at play here. I suspect this is a calculated move designed to make Willow fully responsible for something far more devastating than a fender bender. As the drugs begin to take effect, Willow could easily experience blurred vision, severe disorientation, and a complete loss of motor skills while navigating busy roads. This puts the innocent children sitting in the back seat in unimaginable peril. The most horrifying aspect of this scenario is that the children themselves might become the sole witnesses to her erratic behavior, traumatized by the person they trust most. If the authorities arrive and find Willow behind the wheel in a severely altered state, the shattered trust within her family will be the absolute least of her problems. It implies that Jacinda wants Willow to take the fall for a massive, unforgivable crime, effectively forcing Willow to generate the very legal evidence that will destroy her own life. But we have to ask ourselves about the true ulterior motive here. Why would Jacinda go to such extreme villainous lengths? This brings us to a critical fork in the road regarding her ultimate goal. In scenario A, it looks like Jacinda is acting entirely on her own, driven by pure independent jealousy and malice. She might be aiming to orchestrate a straightforward driving under the influence arrest that would immediately strip Willow of her custody rights, thereby removing her from Michael's life permanently. This would be a brutal, yet simple, calculated move to eliminate a romantic rival. But in scenario B, could it be that Jacinda is merely a low-level pawn working for a much more powerful hidden enemy? This implies that the drugging is just phase one of a massive, coordinated takedown orchestrated by someone operating in the shadows. If a hidden puppet master is pulling the strings, the unforeseen fallout could trap Willow in a labyrinthine legal nightmare from which she can never escape, losing her children and her freedom in one fell swoop. When Michael inevitably discovers what Jacinda has done to Willow and the children, his reaction will likely be apocalyptic. But if you ask me, Michael's wrath will go far beyond a standard shouting confrontation. I suspect he will launch a ruthless, scorched earth investigation to uncover who Jacinda is truly working for. Michael has vast resources, and he will use every ounce of his wealth and power to tear the town apart. If Michael realizes that Willow was targeted by a larger conspiracy, the shattered trust in his inner circle will push him to exact a terrifying vengeance. He might suspect that this entire ordeal was a calculated move to manipulate the custody of the children, and he will not rest until the puppet master is exposed and destroyed. Shifting our focus to the sterile, tense corridors of the hospital, we see another highly dangerous stalemate brewing between Britt and Anna. Britt is dangerously lashing out at the former spy, pushing their fragile dynamic to the absolute limit. On the surface, this appears to be reckless, entitled behavior from a doctor known for her sharp tongue. However, if you ask me, Britt might actually know that Anna is struggling with severe mental instability and dangerous hallucinations. I suspect that Britt's aggressive posturing is not a sudden loss of control, but rather a highly calculated move designed to deliberately provoke Anna into making a fatal mistake. There's a deep, fascinating psychological motive behind Britt's antagonistic actions. She might be trying to force Anna to lose her temper in front of the hospital staff, the nurses, and the administration, thereby publicly exposing the fact that the former agent is no longer mentally fit for duty. This is a terrifying game of psychological warfare. Britt might not necessarily want to put her own life in physical danger, but she could be trying to make Anna reveal her own dark secrets by pushing her to the brink of a nervous breakdown. This intense hospital standoff leads us to two very distinct possibilities. In scenario A, it looks like Britt's calculated move might backfire catastrophically. If Anna is truly unhinged and secretly plotting deadly violence, Britt pushing her buttons could trigger an unforeseen fallout where Anna actually attacks her in a blind rage, leading to a tragic and bloody end. In scenario B, Could it be that Britt successfully outmaneuvers the seasoned spy? This implies that Britt's relentless pressure will cause Anna to publicly break down, exposing her hallucinations and shatter trust to the entire town. This would effectively end Anna's reign of authority without Britt ever having to throw a physical punch, proving that the Doctor is a master manipulator in her own right. Meanwhile, across town, the tension between the twin brothers is reaching a dangerous boiling point. Drew is vehemently threatening Jason over the seemingly simple idea of Danny spending time with Scout. If you ask me, this is not just a petty disagreement over family playdates. I suspect there is a much darker psychological motive at play. Drew might be intentionally manufacturing a confrontation to force Jason into an impossible corner. It looks like Drew wants Jason to choose between his loyalty to his family and his involvement in the ongoing violent chaos of the town. Drew holds deep-seated resentment, and he is weaponizing the children to prove a point. However, I firmly believe Drew is severely underestimating his brother. Jason is known for his lethal patience, his silent observation, and his strategic mind. If Jason realizes that Drew is using Danny and Scout as mere pawns in a twisted power play, the shattered trust between the brothers will evaporate completely. Jason does not make empty threats. He acts. Jason might launch a silent counterattack that completely strips Drew of his perceived control, reminding Drew exactly why Jason is the most feared man in their circle. Let us break down the potential paths for this impending brotherly war. In Scenario A, it looks like Drew's vocal threats will provoke Jason into a direct physical retaliation, escalating their feud into a public spectacle that endangers everyone around them. This would be a calculated move by Drew to paint Jason as the violent aggressor in front of the family. But in Scenario B, could it be that Jason bypasses the physical threats entirely and uses his vast underground resources to legally or socially outmaneuver Drew? This implies that Jason will secure Danny and Scout's safety through quiet back channels, leaving Drew isolated, powerless, and facing the unforeseen fallout of his own arrogance. Finally, we must examine the fractured, complicated dynamic between Jocelyn, Carly, and the mysterious corporate newcomer, Hudson. Jocelyn firmly suspects that Carly is the mastermind behind Hudson, offering her a lucrative position, believing it is a calculated move by her mother to force her out of the intelligence agency. If you ask me, Jocelyn might be entirely wrong about her mother's involvement. I suspect that Hudson is the one manipulating this situation, using the job offer as a psychological motive to deliberately drive a wedge between mother and daughter. Hudson's sudden arrival and immediate, intense interest in Jocelyn's career cannot be a mere coincidence. If he is secretly tied to the intelligence agency or harbors a hidden, sinister agenda, Jocelyn might be walking directly into a trap while completely unaware of the looming danger. I believe Carly is genuinely terrified for her daughter, driven by a history of tragic losses, and is desperately trying to protect her. But because Carly cannot reveal the full truth of the threats they face, Jocelyn perceives her protective actions as suffocating control, leading to bitter arguments. This brings us to our final fork in the road for these three. In Scenario A, it looks like Carly actually did strike a secret backroom deal with Hudson, making a calculated move to protect Jocelyn, even if it means destroying their relationship in the process. This would result in shattered trust that might never be repaired. In Scenario B, could it be that Hudson is playing both women against each other for his own ulterior motive? This implies that Hudson is intentionally isolating Jocelyn from her family's protection so he can use her for his own dangerous agenda, leading to unforeseen fallout that could threaten the entire family's safety and freedom. When you step back and look at the grand scheme of things, every single one of these storylines revolves around the concept of hidden manipulation. Whether it is Jacinda slipping a substance into a cup, Britt using her words as weapons in a hospital hallway, Drew leveraging children to win a psychological war, or Hudson dangling a corporate title to sever family ties, the residents of this town are constantly being played. If you ask me, the true danger does not lie in the immediate actions but in the unseen consequences. A calculated move always creates ripples. The unforeseen fallout from Willow's drive could easily intersect with Jason and Drew's feud if the children are involved. Similarly, Anna's potential breakdown could create a vacuum of authority that allows someone like Hudson to operate with total impunity. The intricate web of lies is tightening, and the psychological motive of every single player is being tested. The shattered trust we are witnessing now is merely the foundation for a much larger, more devastating collapse. As we look ahead to these explosive developments, absolutely nothing is set in stone. You have to wonder if Willow will survive that terrifying drug-fueled drive, or if Jacinda's hidden boss will finally step out of the shadows to claim victory. Will Brit's psychological warfare successfully expose Anna, or will it cost Brit her life in a moment of madness? And will the shattered trust between Jason and Drew, or Jocelyn and Carly, ever be mended? If you ask me, the villains in this town are playing a very long, very deadly game, and our favorite characters are running out of time to realize they are just pawns on the board. We will just have to sit back, analyze the clues, and see who makes the next fatal mistake.